We both look like they're gonna look at like the other video and this one look at our faces and be like, they look fucked.
Yeah. All right, guys. So welcome back. This is episode 12 of Barbells Banter Podcast. We got Taylor joining us again. What's going on, Taylor? This is it. Yeah, so I figured I'd have Taylor on. We're both, pretty much 3 weeks out from the regional show here in Newfoundland now. So we're both feeling prep, got lots to complain about. And yeah, and last time Taylor was on too, it was kind of like more so revolving around the discussion revolved around kind of Jack Factory and, kind of career wise and that sort of thing. So I figured we'd kind of discuss where it all started and, her journey to get where she is today. So, Taylor?
Where I am today. I think that we kind of it was us and Morgan. So we kind of discussed like where each of us were with Jack Factory kind of thing. And that's like kind of like how we discussed that or whatever. So especially for you now, because you have like that athlete title, it's kind of cool because last time we talked here on this, you were still like working towards that.
Yeah, that's true too. I completely forgot about that. How long ago was that? It was like probably 2 months ago.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It seems like it was a few weeks ago, but it was like definitely a couple of months because it was before the lockdown here, I think. So
yeah, crazy. Yeah, time's been flying.
Yeah, so I don't know where to start. I guess like when I started competing and stuff, or so we're 3 weeks out, we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, you can talk about like when you started competing, like kind of how you got into that. Like, I don't even really know the full story, honestly. So you can talk about like
kind of like what?
You can talk about like your sports background and kind of how you transitioned into competing.
Yeah, so I played a bunch of sports growing up. I feel like a lot of competitors kind of went through the same thing where they like played a bunch of sports, were on a bunch of teams, and then like university hit or after like high school came and you just didn't really know what to be doing anymore, where you kind of like lose that whole fitness aspect. So for me, it was kind of like I was okay, like mediocre at every sport that I played, but I just played so many and it was mainly like to be involved and like active and whatever. And I guess like after high school was over, like there was no teams, like my friends weren't on teams anymore, so there's no real like purpose to try to join anything. Like I was in cheerleading and stuff, and I don't know, I just kind of fell off the wagon entirely, and I was partying a lot, and I had a really great time. I don't regret the time that I took away from like fitness or whatever, but I do regret not being so healthy, I guess, or like not being aware of my decisions.
Yeah, 100%.
So I started going to the gym when I started working at a day camp that had a gym in the building. It's like a small community gym at home. And it was like, okay, this is good, but like, I don't really know what I'm doing, like I was going and I thought I knew what I was doing and I was like Googling stuff all the time. And I just felt like really like, I wasn't really making progress. And I was like, okay, like what can I do here? Like, I'm sick of feeling like garbage. Like I knew I wasn't eating the right stuff. I had no idea like what the calories were even, like I knew that calories existed, but I was like, well, do I need to like be aware of that? I had no idea. So yeah. I heard about this coach, John Perry, and he worked with a couple of my friends, and it's more so like lifestyle stuff. And I was like, well, maybe I'll hire a coach for like 6 weeks and just see kind of like what they think and like get a routine going, just kind of whatever. And so I just hired him out of the blue. And I was like, oh, like I made a really good progress within 6 weeks. And so I hired him again for another 6 weeks. And then I was like, okay. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what is your goals here? Because like you're making the progress, you're familiar with the gym, like you know how to track your macros now. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do I want to do? Like, I've never really thought about what I wanted to do up until he really asked me and was like, okay, like you've done 12 weeks now, like what's next? Yeah. And I was like, I think that's what I was missing was like a goal or like something to work towards, because being on teams and stuff, like you're always working towards like in high school, like 4A's or whatever it was. So I was like, I haven't like ran in a long time. Like I used to run a lot, like as a kid for like track and field and sports and whatever. I was like, maybe I'll start running. And at home we have like the Telly 10. So I was like, next summer I'll run the Telly 10, which is a 10-mile road race. And I wasn't even really a big fan of running. I just like was like, well, it's just something that I can do for me that like no one else can really monitor. It's my own progress and whatever. So we started training and I started running, and I ran the telly the next summer all by myself, like didn't train with any friends, like nothing like that, like just completely on my own. And I was like, wow, I kind of like this, like pushing myself to like to limits. Like no one's involved, like no one knows what I'm doing. Like I was getting up early in the morning to go run and like no one even was awake yet, like none of my friends. It was just like my own thing. And I really liked that. And I ran it in the time that I wanted to run it in. And I was like, okay, like I achieved that goal.
Yeah.
Like what else can you do? You know? Sorry, that was really loud.
So at this point, were you like weight training at all, or was it just like you were on programming for like cardio and running?
I was weight training. So I think when I started, like when the running started picking up like towards the spring into the summer, we switched to 4 days a week. And then as I got closer and closer to the race, I did less like lower body training and more like just kind of like full body, upper body, and whatever. So I was always working out. Like since I started with John in the fall, I think it was 2017, and my first race was 2018. I was always working out, like training, but it was never like I was never focused on strength. I was never focused on like, you know, putting on size or anything like that. It was more so just like feeling fit and happy. And I obviously did work on like progressive overload. Like I was trying to increase sets and weight and reps and whatever, but like, I guess I kind of just followed whatever he told me to do. Like I was like, you just tell me what to do and I'll run. Like I didn't really care. Like, you know, I think the strength part didn't really matter to me. So, yeah, I ran the race. Then as soon as that was over, I was like, what else? Like, what's next? Like, what am I going to do next? And I had a friend, Manisha, who had competed the year before. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, I kind of like that. Like, it seemed like she just did something for 8 to 12 weeks, like focused on it, dialed in. And like, once it was over, it was over. And she actually didn't even like it. Like afterwards, she was like, I don't like competing and I don't want to do it ever again. But I saw other people do it. And then I started researching it and I was like, I think it might be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I went into the gym one day and Alicia was working and I was like, hey, like, have you ever looked into this like bodybuilding thing before? And she was like, yeah, like I was looking at the bikini competitions like a few weeks ago actually. And I was like, do you want to do one? And she was like, yeah, sure. I was like, really? And her and I weren't even close at this point, and now we're like best friends. I was like, she just happened to be in the building and I just asked her. I was like, let's do it. You can hire my coach. Like my coach has coached people at this, like up to a couple people, I think he did bikini and figure four. So I was like, he'll coach us. Like I'll give him your number, whatever. Let's just do it. If we like it, cool. If not, like, I mean, it's something for us to do the fall. And she was like, yeah, I'm on, like I'm in. So we started prepping, I think September, and then competed in November. And so I went from a year of like kind of training and running right into a competition where I basically had like you've seen the picture, like I had to get so lean to even look somewhat muscular, but I was like, I'm doing it, I don't care. Ended up placing in Toronto at an open show. Like I'm a natural athlete and like did really well for my first show, I think, in my opinion. And
what show
after that, it was President's Cup, so CPA President's Cup. It was 24th, yeah. So I was just like kind of fell in love with the process after that, and then I went on a vacation in 2019, came back, and there was 8 weeks to go for the 2019 Newfoundland show, and I was like, well, I could just do the show to step on stage and just like get the stage practice. So it was probably like, you know how I feel about that show. Like it was like my worst prep ever and like my worst look, I think, because I just rushed it so much. But same thing, like I was still kind of running and still like just following whatever plan he gave me every 6 to 8 weeks and not really focusing on any area. Like I didn't really know like what specifics I needed to work on for bikini. Like I didn't really see myself going anywhere with it. It was just kind of like something to do. So I prepped into the second show. And after the second show, I was like, I placed, but I didn't really like how I looked. And I was like, okay, like I need to start actually working on areas, I think. Like, I need to start actually like looking into this and seeing like what I need to build and like how I need to grow. And like, I also, my calories were so low again. And like metabolism just like wasn't really like doing much. And I just was like, I'm not happy with what's going on here. So I did some more research, did my first like couple months off. I didn't even really take a full off season, and then started prepping again in January or December. I think it was January for the 2020 show, which got canceled.
Right.
So back to back shows. Like I probably took 3 months off there. And then that was like the first 3 months off from like dieting that I've ever taken. up until 2020, where I took that like year and actually trained properly. And this is like where I think I've made the most progress, like this last year.
Yeah, you've made insane progress.
And I think it's honestly like my newbie gains, like legit, because I feel like I was just running and like kind of working out, but now like I was focusing on like strength training and like really like area specific training, I guess, like my shoulders, my glutes. Like I was really like looking into what I needed to be a better bikini athlete.
Yeah, you're actually bodybuilding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So at first it was more so like, this is fun, like I'm trying to just push myself to limits, and then it became a sport to me, I think, over the last year. And that's like when I've made the most progress, like, and I also ate a lot, and now I'm eating twice as much as I was in my first show, and I'm dieting still and like making progress. And I don't know, I feel really happy with where I am. And like obviously I have my moments where I'm like, but like overall my progress, yeah, it's just prep brain, but like overall my progress, I'm like, I compare the pictures, I send them to you like every day, and I'm like, I feel like a different person. And that's kind of how it started though. It was really just like I needed something to work towards, and then I fell in love with like the chase of like making myself better, and then I like researched it and I guess liked it from there. So yeah.
No, 100%. And like it's like bodybuilding is a sport where it's like it's not like you reach destination like in, I don't know, some other sport, like in like hockey or basketball is like you do a tournament, you win the tournament, and that's kind of it. It's like there's a constant pursuit of, you know, constantly bettering yourself, and there's always something else that you could do. As you know, like from competition to competition, you've dialed in more and more, and in between those shows, you've learned more things about yourself and kind of how to make yourself better. And it's kind of been the same for me, because like before I did my first show, I wasn't even necessarily bodybuilding. It was more so power building, because I was like focused on like, I want to have a big bench, a big squat, a big deadlift. And I was really focused on like the strength aspect.
It's to the gym after high school.
Yeah, legit. And that's all it was. And so like, and I was already pretty lean, and I just did like, it was like an 8 or 9 week prep, and like it went well. But then after that show,
that was the 2019 show, right?
Yeah. And it was really after that show that I actually started to focus on like, okay, like I saw myself when I was lean, I saw like what I wanted to work on and kind of how I wanted to look. And I actually started following bodybuilding and the actual sport itself. And as like same went for you, is like I kind of fell in love with the sport itself. So, right. And now it's been 2 years, and
here
we are, we're in it again, right?
No, it's cool, because I feel like, so the first time, actually, so I put up a thing on my Instagram for, I guess no one really knows because we talked about this before we started recording, just some questions. And one of the questions were, how did we meet? So how
did we meet?
Yeah. So now that we're talking about the 2019 show, there was a show in 2019 in Newfoundland. That was when I did like the 8-week kind of crappy prep for. I got second at that show in open and natural. I think you got a couple different placings, no?
Yeah, I got second overall in men's physique and first in novice.
Right, yeah. So I saw you at the show, and we both worked at Cave Dog at this point, but I don't think we'd worked together, or maybe we worked together once. It was something like we worked together at Cave Dog, and we like were stacked fridge together, and we like were both hungover. Yeah, so it must have been before prep, I think. So we were like stocking the fridge, and Steve was like, put like 12 cases of like 3D in the fridge and like whatever it was, and we were putting those away together. And I was so tired. It was like a Sunday, and so were you. We like barely spoke, I don't think.
We were just like silently talking.
It was so cold. Yeah, and you were like, same. And that was pretty much it. And then I always worked in Mount Pearl, so I never really came out, like unless it was a Sunday, which is usually by myself. So I never really worked with you. And then the show, I remember I said something to you when you were walking by. You had like a bunch of medals on your neck. I was like, oh, got some hardware, did you? Or something. Really embarrassing.
Yeah, it was funny. That was really funny.
Like, who are you?
Yeah, legit.
Like just walking around, like, but that's just so me. Like I'll just say whatever to whoever, and I don't care. But I'm like, I literally didn't know that like who you were really, besides from that you worked at the same place as me sometimes, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then I guess we worked together a couple more times, and then like we had mutual work friends like Carson and Kira and everyone, and then we kind of just meshed from there, I guess. I don't really remember when like the point was when we were like besties. I don't remember like how we like at what day we were like, oh, we're like close
Yeah,
now.
no, it just kind of developed over time, and it was just kind of like we were in not necessarily the same circles, but we were just kind of we worked at the same store, and like we were both doing bodybuilding, both in like kind of the gym scene. So it's kind of just like
we just
meshed.
kept running into each other.
Yeah,
type
exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was thinking about that, and I was like, I remember like I made that comment to you at the show, but like I probably said shit like that to everybody. Like I don't know.
I don't even think I responded to you when you said that, because I was like rushing to go get my pictures or something like that, and I just like I was like, who is this?
Bro, yeah, you know when like someone waves at you and like you wave back, but they're actually like waving at the person behind you. I feel like that's like the look you had on your face. You're like,
Yeah. Is she talking to me? Yeah. But yeah, so how's prep?
I feel really good right now. I think we kind of hit that like wall at the same time. Maybe you like a couple days before me. Where you're like, why am I doing this? So I had a really rough, I want to say week, like a week and a half, maybe into 2 weeks, where like some days were okay, but like most of them for 2 weeks was like I felt like garbage. Like literally, like my training was sucking. My mood, I had to force myself to be like a good person to be around. Like it was like everything. I think I called you like a couple of times, and I was like, someone like asked me how I was doing, and I wanted to like beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, but they weren't doing anything wrong. I was like, why? Like I knew like every time you prep, it's kind of cool. Like I know it sucks being like, oh, I feel like a villain. Like I feel like literal evil, like an evil person. But like you're also just hungry and tired, and like you're at this point where you're so close, but you're so far away and whatever. But and like so many hormones and emotions going through your body, and you're still training, you're still like dieting, but like every single prep that you do this, it gets so much easier because you become more familiar with those feelings. So it was like when I knew I was feeling this way, like I knew to like call someone who understood. So I would call you. I would like message Morgan. I'd message my sister. She's actually really like been really good with this with me. Like the first time I prepped, she was like, "You're insane," and now she's like, "Oh yeah, like this is like normal." Like, and she tells my roommate, my friends to be like, "Hey, like she's going through it right now. Like let's be supportive and like let her do her thing."
Yeah.
Versus before,
Understanding.
yeah, so it's like everyone, every single time I do it, not just myself, becomes more familiar with the process. And you're like, catch yourself thinking this way. And you're like, I remember this feeling, or I remember being irritable. And like, you like, I guess like it's growth in a different way. Like, you're like, okay, like, how do I be a better person in this situation? Does that make sense?
No,
so it's like,
100%.
oh, I like hit this like wall a few weeks ago. And it was super tough. And like, I kept a lot more of it in, or like I guess I let it out to you, people who understood, but I didn't lash out as much, or I wasn't as short with people like on the outside as much as I would have been in the past, because I was like growing from the past experience. Like I was like, okay, I know this feeling. I feel it coming on. Like, what can I do to try to fight this? And I really tried my best to just like put my head down, like do the work, like get the shit done. I knew it was going to go away. I just didn't know when. And like, it was almost like the more I just like let it out to people who understood and like tried to kind of like dial in and just push through no matter what, the more like, or the easier I guess it got. Oh, and then it kind of like, you know, when you're close to the show, you're like, you don't really care anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's like most people listening probably don't actually understand like how difficult it is to even like someone says something to you that's very like just normal, basic, and you just don't have the energy to respond. Like you're just like waking up every day and like you're not eating a lot of food, you're hungry, you're tired, and then you have to go do your cardio and go train hard and like just get through the day, and like every task is like 10 times harder than it would normally be. And then so like when someone says something to you, or like there's a minor inconvenience, it's just like 10 times worse. And it's like, you know, it's, you gotta like, it takes a lot of like, I guess, willpower to like respond in a manner that's not like, you know, you're just gonna snap, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I know. And we're making it sound so horrible. Obviously, like I actually just checked yesterday, and I was talking to Em about it, Emily, my roommate, and I was like, I've been dieting, I think the longest out of everybody, because I had like started before you guys all started, because I was like, I'm doing a show, I don't care which one. I've been dieting really, besides a couple of breaks, for 32 weeks, which is insane. So like for me to only really hit, like I know when I was 8 to 10 weeks out and like 6 to 8 weeks out is usually when I like am like have like these like mental blocks. For me to only hit those like now, I'm like, wow, like you know what I mean? Like I must have just, I don't know, like I just keep thinking about growth. I'm like, wow, like, you know, like people don't understand. So, and my body, like, yeah, everyone's like, well, you've been dieting for this long. You weren't like irritable or short a few months ago. I'm like, the more you're dieting, like your body, like I'm actually just hungry now. Like I'm
Yeah.
actually just hungry, and like I don't really have much left like in the tank when it comes to body fat, like strength, like energy. For so long, my strength was like on par. Like I was still making progress. I feel like I was like, I don't want to say even putting muscle on, but like when I increased calories for a couple of months, I honestly saw like progress and I was like doing really well. So when strength started going down and like calories started going down too and cardio was increasing, and I was like, we had the pandemic up here kind of like get a bit worse, like everything just, I don't know, like it changed a little bit and shifted. And I was like, wow, I'm actually just tired now. Like I'm
Yeah.
actually just drained now. And like when that hits at 6 weeks out and 5 weeks out and 4 weeks out, you're still very far away from a show. Although it seems so close, you're still very far away. And you're at this point where you're like, what am I doing this for? Like, I remember talking to you, we both were like, why? And then because we've done it before, we know like how rewarding it is afterwards. So we're like, okay. So to anyone who's like going through this, maybe if it's your first prep or whatever, just like you have a coach for a reason. Like just follow it, trust the process, like push through it. Cause like it's so rewarding. And when you get to that 3 week out point, you're like, oh my God, like we're 3 weeks away. Like this is fun. Like I enjoy this. You know, just because I had a couple crappy days or like even a couple weeks out of 32, like if I had 2 bad weeks, man, like in regular life, you're going to have a bad week. Like, you know what I mean? So I can't, like, I try to just like look at big picture stuff and like, no one really understands, like, because everyone's like, well, you do this to yourself and you decide to do this, no one's making you. But like really, like, although I know that like I'm the one who put myself in that position, and same with you, like it's still hard, you know, like it's like anything. So
and that's something that I was thinking about too, is because like last prep, my prep was so short, it was like I didn't really have a wall. Like 2 weeks out, like I noticed like, okay, this sucks, but I was 2 weeks out. So it's like you said, like we're 3 weeks out now. So it's like
yeah,
I can do anything for 3 weeks. Like it doesn't matter. I could be absolutely starving for 3 weeks and it'd be fine. Because just because you're so close. But like this time I started at what was supposed to be 16 weeks out, and now it turned into 19 weeks. So it was like significantly longer than my last prep. And for me, this prep, it hasn't even really been hunger. Like, yeah, I'm hungry, but I don't mind that. It's been like doing the same thing every single day and just constantly just over and over again, like eating the same meals. And it's just like, it was just getting to my head a lot. And like, I hit that like between like 8 and 6 weeks out, because I was like, this is the length of my prep.
You're like, I'm done. Like, and then you're not even like ready yet because you kind of like drag it out. So you're like, I don't even look good. But like you do, obviously. You're like, I'm not even like ready, and I feel like shit. Like what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was probably has been the toughest part mentally this prep, is just like being in a constant cycle of doing the same thing over and over again, and like still being so far away.
Yeah. I agree. It's the point. Like I always say it, and I remember Dana French said it to me. She, you know, Dana and Ken.
Yeah.
They were like, Taylor, my first show, I did posing with her, and I was 9 weeks out. She's like, next week, you're enough. Like 8 weeks out. She's like, and when you're 4 to 3 weeks out, she was like, you're gonna be like, why am I doing this? She's like, message me like if you need to, but she was like, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it. And she was like, she's IFBB pro. She got her pro card her first try. And she's like a mom now and just does posing and judging and whatever. But it stayed with me. Like 2018, she was like, 3 weeks out, you're going to feel like garbage, or 4 weeks out, whatever. And she was like, just put your head down and do it. So it's like what I know now. I'm like, it's engraved in me. It's like, although like you didn't hit a wall the first time because it was so short, mine the first time I was like dieting and going into a diet. I just remember her saying that to me. So it's like every time I go through that, I'm like, you know the difference, just do it. But I think because maybe of the like whole lockdown situation, like what you said, that same thing every single day, I don't know if this was the way for you, but I think it was worse a little bit for me because it was like, we just did this last year. Like we couldn't compete or couldn't do anything. We did months and months and months of doing the same thing every single day. And then it was like, it turned into something that we love that almost felt like a chore. We were doing the same thing every single day again. And like here in Nova Scotia, only the last 2 weeks have we been able to even go out and go anywhere. So it was like I was doing that and then just coming home and I was sitting and I was just like, what is my life? Like, you know, I think maybe if we were able to do a little bit more like activity wise, it might have been a bit easier, especially with the weather being nicer. But maybe not, because you guys had things open and you still felt the same way. So I'm like, I'm trying to justify my feelings here, because like I feel like there was like, it was a longer period for me this time than it was last time. Like last prep, there was like a few days where I was irritable, but like this time it was like a week or two. So like I'm trying to justify where that came from, and I do think it's like not working the same job, like doing the same thing every single day when it came to food and like activity, and not being able to go anywhere. And I was like, I'm restricting myself in so many more ways than every other person's province is restricting themselves, but like we're all restricted in every other way too. So it's like prep is hard, but prepping during a pandemic is like a total different thing. I feel like we're going to be so proud of ourselves once this is all done. Like I can't wait to like celebrate and stuff. And I feel like I'm getting fired up here talking about it, but like knowing that we went through that is just like amazing. I think like anyone who's prepping, no matter even if you're just doing it for like the sake of like having fun, like doing it in a pandemic, not knowing like if a show is going to go ahead, like kudos to anyone who's like doing it, because it's so hard. Like
no, 100%. And I was in the same boat too, because we were in like full lockdown here in Newfoundland when I started prep, and I was like, if we don't get out of lockdown before, like, because I had a date set, I think it was like March 17th or something like that, like mid-March. And my coach was like, Luke was like, okay, we're starting on this date. And I was like, I don't know. Like,
I'm not sure to convince you to do it. You're like, Taylor, I'm not doing it. If like we don't have a date, if it's not confirmed, I'm not doing it. And I was like, someone jump on the prep wagon with me.
There's no way I'm doing a prep and having to train at home. Like that's not happening. Anyway, so I ended up doing it and like getting started, and it was just kind of like I just kind of went through the motions until, you know, things opened up. But then like you said too, it's, I think not being busy and you being in lockdown was a big thing, because obviously being busy, you know, it takes your mind off prep itself and the days go by a lot faster. And having actual structure in your day, like knowing you have to do this then, and like, you know, planning your meals around things you need to do throughout the day. If you just have the whole day to do nothing, like you're like, oh, I got to do an at-home workout at some point today. Like there's no real motivation. Like, like it's like, why would I get off the couch? Why would I get up and do this? It's just like you don't have anything else to do, so it's definitely a lot more difficult mentally.
Yeah. And when you hit like a plateau, like I always do, like for weight and stuff, especially and for females it's a bit different anyways, but like I always hit like a couple plateaus. But when I was 130, I hit like a plateau for a few weeks, like 133 or something, and like couldn't get past it. And I was looking better, but then I was like, am I? And I knew I was just sitting around so much, but I was doing my cardio and I was eating my food, like what I could do. Like there was nothing else I could do, and the weather wasn't so great. So I was like, what more like can I do? I knew I was sitting around. I was like, I could give more, but like I mentally couldn't. So I was like, I'm restricted, like I can't do anything. But now it's like I'm back to work, so I'm on my feet. My meat is definitely like increased, but it's not like me putting stress on my body. It's like I'm just doing things because I have more energy and I want to, because I'm able to now. And I feel like that's why I broke through that kind of plateau again last week, was because like I'm just moving more and there's more to do, and I'm like happy to do it because I'm like, oh my God, I was home for so long, like I don't care. But like, yeah, like just sitting around and just feeling like, I don't know, like there's just even food. It's like I'm bored with my food. Like I track calories and macros, but I still kind of eat the same thing every single day for the most part, unless I'm having a crazy craving or my coach is like, go get something. I pretty much make a meal plan out of my macros and like same foods all the time. And I have a roommate who doesn't prep, so like she's getting different things. Like my sister was working with Morgan, so she was on a meal plan too, but like sometimes she'd have a cheat meal, and I'm like, I'm just sitting here. Like I remember last lockdown, not pandemic, I was like drinking wine on Zoom with my friends. They were still doing these things, and I was like, okay, well now I'm just sitting out and just sitting here, and I can't even go for like a walk or like go down to the gym again or like do whatever because I'm stuck home. So like it was such a thing, and I think I've become a lot more independent because of it. And like this is my first time prepping not having anyone like like support wise with me. Like obviously I have support, like Emily and my sister are very supportive. But like you guys, like so I'm away from home, we'll say, like I'm in Halifax and you guys are all in Newfoundland. And I was just thinking about this earlier, like my first prep, Alicia prepped with me and we were like this, like I had her entirely, had other people that I would like bounce things off of. I went to the gym where my coach owned my gym. So like I saw my coach every single day. So it was like, and like Carly was there, like there was tons of people always. Second prep, same thing. Like Carly was prepping with me. I was home with Alicia. So like Alicia wasn't prepping, but she was like working out with me. Like you and I became closer, like after actually this, I wouldn't say my second show, but like after the second show into the third prep, like I just had more gym friends. So I just felt more grounded. And I was also in a relationship for like my other 3 preps. So I had someone to do nothing with that wasn't like a roommate or a best friend. It was like a relationship, like comfort, like home. Cause I've lived alone for like the last 3 years. So having a relationship with someone who's at your house all the time, like meal prep with you, or like knew that it was okay that you couldn't like go out and drink, but would spend the Friday night with you. Like I don't have that this time. Like so I'm like entirely like you guys, like all my friends in Newfoundland are all prepping in Newfoundland together, training together. And like I'm here like just making friends in the gym now here in Nova Scotia. And like they're not really prep friends. I have a couple, but they're doing different shows and like we're not close and the gyms are closed. And like even coming home, like I'm alone a lot of the time. So it's definitely made me more independent. And I feel like I'm going to be super grateful for it once it's finished. But it was a very different experience this time. And I think that may have played a factor in me feeling a little bit like, why am I doing this? Because I felt like something was missing. And I feel like when I was in lockdown here, you guys weren't. And I was seeing you guys like really push each other in training and videos. And like, of course, I like watch all of your stuff. And I was like, shit, like, I can't even train with anybody right now. Like, you know what I mean? And my roommate's like kind of was working out with me, but like kind of not. And like, I'm prepping and she's just like living an active lifestyle. And it was just so weird. So I don't know. It was definitely like a big thing that I didn't even really consider like over the last 2 weeks until like today or yesterday. I was like, wow, I kind of did this whole thing like actually alone this time. Like my family's not even in Halifax besides my sister. So it's cool to do, but I feel like it's definitely like been an experience, I guess.
No, without a doubt. Like I don't know what I'd do without like the boys like Luke and Jared and Morgan, like without having them to kind of train with me and push me. Because on the days that like I'm just drained and I don't want to train, have no energy, like as soon as I'm with them, it's like I kind of get like a little spark and like we're able to kind of push each other when we train. So yeah, no, it's definitely a whole different battle, kind of doing it yourself and not having, especially not being in a relationship and not having that like escape per se, like something that's kind of outside of the gym, like you can just take your mind off prep for a while. That's definitely a big difference as well.
Yeah, like I've been out of a relationship for over a year now, so like I'm used to not being in a relationship, but it was like the last 3 preps I did, I was in a relationship, so it was kind of like, and like my relationship was like in my friend group too. So it was kind of like my friends understood and it was just like such a different thing. And that I kind of didn't realize was so different, I guess, until this point, if that makes sense. So like, yeah, I was like, okay, wow, like you're actually doing so much better than you're giving yourself credit for. Like you're literally like working from home now for the most part, like working in a gym, like, you know, doing all these different things. I also got a gym, like Good Life gym membership back for like the rest of the prep. I don't know if I told you that.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, so like I work at the gym that's in my building, which is where I was training. And I was kind of like, okay, I need to have like an outlet, like something different for the next few weeks, just to like a change of scenery. I do really like the Good Lives here. When I come home, that way I can train at Good Life too if I want to. I'll probably train at like the Jack's gym too. But yeah, so I got my Good Life membership back. And I noticed my training was a lot better too, just because it was like new faces. Like I just was like, I felt like I was going to the gym versus like just going downstairs, you know what I mean? Like, or going to work, or when I was downstairs, I felt like I had to clean up a little bit because I was in the gym and I'm the only employee and I didn't want it to get messy. So now I'm like, when I go to the gym, I'm going to train. I'm not going to work. You know, I'm like, I'm going to do something and get it done.
Even makes it like a little more exciting too, like just to change up the scenery and like have different people around. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like it gets out of like your regular constant routine, like that constant cycle, like I was talking about.
Do the same thing all the time. Yeah. So I think that's been like a huge thing in the last week for me too. Like I get excited to go now, but if I want to go downstairs, I'll still go, but it's like my choice. I have options and I'll do my cardio downstairs, obviously, but
yeah,
I don't know. Like I guess this was like a long-winded answer. So like, how am I feeling now? I feel like really good. I feel really good. I feel like we're like diving in now the next few weeks. I might do like one refeed day this weekend or something. One, like obviously do my 2 rest days I usually do, but like I'm like, give me all the cardio, like cut my food, whatever you need to do. Like I'm like, tell me to eat dog shit and I'll eat dog shit at this point. Like I don't care. Like I'm like, I'll do, like I want it so bad. And it's like, I don't know. I was explaining this to the girls yesterday or the day before. It's such a different sport. And you played a lot of team sports too. It's like when you go into a show, like we can both do, I think maybe we were talking about this, but like we can both do whatever we want. We can look at other people, like we can compare ourselves, like we can do that or we cannot. And it's like at the end of the day, we don't know who's going to show up. We don't know how their peak's going to go. We don't know like what their mindset's going to be, what their stage presence is going to be like. We don't know anything. So going into this, it's like, it's not only like I feel accomplished and like I'm proud of myself, but like the actual competition, like you have no idea really and truly until you get there what someone's going to bring. Like why spend the last 3 weeks stressing and worrying when you can just be like, wow, like I'm so grateful for where I am. Like I made progress. I'm happy with this. And going into a show with that mindset, I feel like is just, like, it's so exciting, like being willing to do whatever and like just getting there. It's so great. But then like when it comes to actual competition, if you compare it to like team sports and stuff, it's like whenever you play a tournament, like you're like, okay, I know who's showing up. Like, you're going to play.
You know what teams are good and what teams are bad.
Yeah, like you're like so different. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like people don't really get that aspect of it too, but it's also like so rewarding in a way that you have to kind of think of it as like, I'm proud of myself and like not stress anymore. And I feel like at 3 weeks out, I always just kind of let go of that stress. And I'm like, I'm here, like I'm just doing what I'm told. As long as I am transparent with my coach and I do the shit, like I get it done. Like I can't be unhappy. Like I can't be mad at myself, you know?
But I think that's like a mindset that you've developed over the past like 3 or 4 years, because like that's not something that people like first time competing, they're not going to have that right away. They're going to be kind of worried about other competitors. They're going to be worried whether their coach is doing a good job or not. And like, it's just like I have that mindset now too, but like I'll still sometimes catch myself being like, what about if I don't show up on point, or what about if this guy's going to show up better than me? It's just like,
have like moments. I do too. Or like wake up bloated one day and I'm like, oh my God, what if this happens? Like, you know, like, but you kind of have to have those moments, like, but it's getting yourself out of that moment and like still going throughout the day, like not letting that moment consume you. Like we all have those thoughts, but it's like not letting that thought throw you off is like where I think the growth comes in and like the experience comes in and like that mindset of like I don't know, like doing whatever it takes. Like even we all have those thoughts. Like I'm not trying to say like, oh, now I'm experienced, I don't have that, like, or it's 3 weeks out, I don't care anymore. Like no, like I wake up and I'm like, shit, I wonder who's gonna show up. Like, you know what I mean? But I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm more positive about it because I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm showing up. Like, you know,
better at like breaking those barriers and like getting over those mental barriers as you go through prep. Like I feel like you just get better and better as you go through prep. And even like not even just the mental barriers, like say like waking up in the morning, it's just like eventually you get into the routine of being like, okay, I'm getting up and doing my cardio now, where the beginning of prep you might like okay, I'll lie down for a little longer kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll do it tonight.
Yeah, exactly. You know? So it's just like throughout prep, it's just like a series of like breaking these mental barriers and like, you know, building your mindset and becoming better and better as you go through prep. Which is why I like it. Like I just really enjoy that part of it. So
yeah, I feel like you just become so much more in tune with yourself. Like I learn something different about myself every single time I prep, and it's like what you just said. I know, like if I get up and get it done in the morning, I'm gonna feel so much better like throughout the day. Versus if I leave stuff to the end of the night, I have like anxiety like about it. I'm like, oh, I have to get this done. everything else I do is like tailored towards like making sure I get that thing done at the end of the night. And it's just like, for what? And then I also enjoy it in the morning, and I'm like, I feel good and I get up. So it's like those things carry over into everyday life after the show for me. Like, it's like I get everything done that I need to get done first thing in the morning, that I have the day to do what I want, you know? So yeah, like you said, like it kind of just like the more you do it, the more of like, I guess, a habit or routine it becomes, and like the more you learn. But yeah, no, I'm definitely the same way when it comes to like getting stuff done in the morning and my cardio. Like I always have to get up and get it done because I just.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good start to the day too, like just having, and you especially need that because like starting off your day with like doing your cardio, stretching, posing, all of that, it's like you have that instant kind of gratification, like, okay, I have this done today. And then it kind of sets you off on like the right foot for the rest of the day. Because I've already,
I'm not gonna mess this up. Like I already did it. Like, you know what I mean? I put the work in this morning. Like, why would I mess it up for the rest of the day?
yeah, exactly.
You know?
You're already productive this morning. So why not just keep that going and just have like a full productive day? And like productive day after productive day, it's just like it becomes a habit. So it's just like, I don't know, prep is just a whole lot of building good habits.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's so much more to it than what people see. And it sucks because the close people around you, like as you get closer, like do kind of see the shittier end of it where you're like tired or you can't go out with your friends and stuff as much. For me, I still try to be as social as I can, but like my social battery wears out a lot faster. And people do, like, yeah, like I'm lucky because I kind of try to like balance it out. But at this point, like I'm like, okay, I know my limits. I haven't made a plan in probably 3 or 4 weeks. I still go to things, but every time someone asks me, I'm like, I'll let you know like when it happens, if I'm coming or not. And most times I don't go because I'm just like, I'd rather be home. But yeah, like people kind of see the shittier end of it, like, and that kind of sucks. But like, hopefully with us sharing these like mindset things and like these actual like lifestyle habits that carry over, people can kind of see that there's a lot more to it. And obviously looking great, like looking shredded and like seeing your muscle growth, like that's so amazing. Like that's such a good feeling. Like looking at your pictures being like, shit, I did that. Like I did this over years and years. Like it's so crazy thinking that the first time I competed was 4 years ago. Like, that's so insane. Like I can't even believe that. Like I feel like it was yesterday. So like seeing that you developed into like a better version of yourself, like it's such a rewarding feeling. And like looking good, like people being like, wow, this girl's shredded, or this guy looks sick, or people questioning if you're natty or not, like that stuff is like, it's so cool like to experience. But to me, like the mental barriers and like the blocks and then like the habits and the things that carry over are so much bigger, and those are the things that people don't see. People just see what you look like and your attitude. Sometimes if you're in a bad mood, they remember that, but like they don't see the other stuff. And like to me, like why I'm successful like in what I'm doing right now is because of the first prep that I did, because like the discipline that I've learned and it's kind of carried over.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, 100%. Like one of the biggest lessons I think that I've learned through like kind of bodybuilding and actually doing a prep is that like if you do the work, you're going to get the results. Like if you do exactly, like just do what your coach tells you to do and it's all going to work out. Like you're going to see the results. And like it's a lot easier, I guess, to see in prep than you would see in your off season, because like in the off season, you're just like, you're trying to put on weight. So it's like, you're getting fluffy and it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm like looking better or not, because like, yeah, I might be getting stronger, but like, I don't look as good. But like in prep, it's like, as you get closer to the show, it's like literally every day, as you know, like you're seeing changes. So it's like, if I follow this plan, I'm going to see changes. So it's like really reinforces the whole thing of like, you know, you put in the work, you're going to get the results. And that's really, and then that carries over to everything else, right?
Yeah,
you know, really good. If I do this, I'm gonna get the results. I'm gonna be successful in this, right? So it's just a matter of actually doing it and taking the first step to do that.
Yeah, and I think you and I can both speak to that when it comes to like social media, especially, and like even making money, like our jobs, like where we're going with this, I see it being very similar. And it's kind of like we had to, just the same as building muscle, like even with Jack Factory, like we had to put work in first. Like we had to learn about products, try them, you know, recommend them to people, reach out, like do big posts, like do all this work first. And we saw the results after, and like it's so rewarding, like you said, and it comes almost like when you least expect it, when you're like just doing it because you're like you're authentic about it and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
all of those things came from, working towards a goal and making myself better and like learning about myself, and like not just like learning about myself and being like, oh, okay, well, like I'm moody when this happens. It's like, I'm moody when this happens. How do I fix it? Like, how do I be better next time? Like that, like urge to be better next time has like literally made my life. Like I'm genuinely very happy with like the majority of things that are going on in my life right now. And I feel like it's all because I have that mindset of like, put the work in and like the results will come. Like there's no way they can't. If you're really passionate and like doing what you need to do and like you're learning about yourself and trying to be better, like there's literally no way you can fail, in my opinion, because you're doing what you enjoy. So how are you failing? Like you're enjoying your life. And then it's like other people recognize that and then they carry that forward, or they see that and they're like, okay, well, like, I want to be like that or whatever, and it goes from there.
And it sounds almost like stupid because it's so simple, but it's just
cliche.
Yeah, it's just literally that, like, you literally just have to do the work and that's it. Like it's that simple. Like you have a goal, make a plan, and make a list, and then check off the list. Like that's all you have to do. And it's just like the biggest thing is probably like continuing to check off that list, even though you're not seeing results, or like you're hitting a plateau or something, whether that's in prep, like with your weight, like you said. Like I feel like that's a big barrier, probably more so for female competitors than it is for male competitors, because like I could be up 5 pounds one day and I'll be like, whatever. Like I'll be like, I'm gonna be stronger in the gym today. Like that's kind of how I look at it. But like if you hit a plateau, it might be more difficult mentally, but it's just a matter of like actually to get through that, just like checking those boxes, being like, okay, I'll stick to my plan today, it'll be better tomorrow. And like consistently doing that, it's like, that's it.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you want to like talk a little bit about like the female struggles and stuff, I know you mentioned that earlier too.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I do think like I'm lucky because I feel like I have I don't really like using the term like relationship with food, because I feel like it's not a relationship. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just food and that's what, but I guess my mindset towards eating and like training, I have a really good mindset.
Your approach.
My approach. It's just like, I understand it and I don't have negative thoughts about it all the time. Sometimes I definitely do. And I think like as you're dieting, putting work in, like you have like, I guess like it's hard to see your progress when you see yourself every single day. So it's like the importance of having a coach and like sticking to the plan and stuff. But as a female, I think like, especially like the last year or two, like people like saying your weight doesn't matter. There's like a lot of like body positivity stuff going out there. And I think all that's really great. But I think when you're dieting, like it can just get in your head, I guess, sometimes, because you're like, what, should it matter? Like, shouldn't it matter? Like, I find myself questioning myself because others question themselves, and I get like caught up in it a little bit. And like, then I'm like, wait, I don't actually care. But like, when I talk to people like you, when you're like, okay, I don't, like, the scale doesn't matter. Like, how does the scale matter? I'm like, oh, true. But then I'm like, but like all these girls or all my friends are always talking about losing weight. And I'm like, well, I know I need to lose weight to like get lean. So it's like, sorry if you can hear those cars, but it's just like living on the highway problems. But yeah, it's just like one of those things that I think is different for female competitors, because you're like, a pound for me is so different than a pound for like a male competitor, and like strength wise and all that. And also like with your cycle, like I don't mean cycle like as in steroids, I mean cycle as in like your period, like with your cycle, like, and water retention and like all that. Like for me, the week before and like going into my period, like my weight's always up. My mood is usually a little bit off the day before I start my period. My energy as I diet more, my cravings can be a little bit different. Everyone's different. I mean, I don't find it too bad and I'm used to it. I've had one for like what? I don't know how many years, a lot, a long time. So like I'm familiar with it. But when you're trying to diet down and lose weight, and then you have your period and like the scale just shoots up and you're like, what the hell? Like I just dieted for like, or I just had like, my coach just cut my calories for 2 weeks and increased my cardio. My weight's gone up. What the fuck is that about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, even though you're like, okay, I'm on my period. I'm inflamed. I maybe didn't drink enough water one day, and the next day, like, retained a lot of water, whatever. It could have been anything. You didn't sleep. Like, I know that there's so many factors, but even though I know that, a lot of the people that I'm surrounded by are always focused on like losing weight and talking about losing weight. And it's like, I'm like, although I know that, like, I still need to lose the weight, like, so it's like, it's a constant like battle, and going through like the hormones of like having a period and losing your period and all of that when you're prepping. It's a lot. And I remember every prep I've done, I've lost my period besides this one. So like, I'm like, am I not lean enough? Like, is that what's going on here? Am I not light enough? Or I'm like also 16 pounds heavier than I was my first show at this point, or 15 or something. So I'm like, am I, not right? And I'm comparing that, but then I'm like, it's been 4 years and I've put on insane progress. So it's like, I can sit down and rationalize it if I'm actually being like, okay, Taylor, the difference, but it doesn't mean like my first thought isn't like something negative. It's just like trying to justify it and being like, okay, like, look at the bigger picture, like take a step back and listen to your coach. And like, although I do have those thoughts, and I feel like I try to be as transparent as I can about them, like, I still put my head down and do the work. And then like in a few days, my weight drops and I text you and I'm like, it's fine. And you're like, yeah, I told you. Sometimes you just gotta play it off other people and you have to just get it off your chest. But it doesn't mean that I have like a negative relationship with anything or mindset or approach. It's just like, when you're questioning or when you're like working towards something and you don't see the results, or you don't feel like you are where you need to be, or the competition gets in your head, you're gonna think like you're not ready, and you're gonna think these things. And when you're on your period and you're dieting and you can't really like indulge in those cravings, or your sleep is off, like your body's gonna fight you, and like your hormones are literally fighting you. Like, it's being like, stop doing this, or like, sorry. It's like, give me like what I want, and like you can't, and it's just like you're fighting yourself at that point. And then because you're stressed, you're not sleeping, and then just the scale, and then it's just like so many things. It can get like, it can be a really scary cycle, like for a week or two, and that's kind of like what happened to me. And then you plateau, and it's just, yeah. So getting it out and off your chest, I think talking to people who understand the process is like so key, and like being transparent with your coach, like having a coach you can go to that understands all these things is so important. Because like, if you had a coach, or if I ever had a coach that I couldn't be like, hey, like, I'm on my period, or like I'm emotional, or like whatever, and they didn't get it, like, I don't know what I would do. Or like have friends that like you that are like, why does the scale matter? You look better today than you did yesterday, and we're doing this. When you get on stage, like, no one is like, oh, she's not 110, like she's not gonna win, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, what does she look like? How does she present herself? So I'm like,
really, for like female competitors, it's just like another kind of mental barrier that is there, and like kind of like every month or so there's just kind of like a wrench thrown in there, and like that's just something else you guys have to deal with, right? But obviously throughout the preps you become better at dealing with that. And and like you said, having a coach that you're able to talk to and friends that you're able to talk to about that, and just kind of like, even though yourself, like, I know we literally have this conversation like every week, and it's like, yourself that like it's fine and it's going to work itself out, and like you just have to trust the process. It just helps hearing that from someone else. Like, you know yourself. Yourself, you're just holding water, you're a little bloated, but you just want to hear like it's going to be fine, like you'll look better in a couple days, and like that's it, right? And that's all you need, and that's, everyone needs that sometimes, right? So it's like,
I think the support, like, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have friends that like were familiar with the process, or like, and obviously the more you do it, the more friends you make and whatnot. But if I didn't have the support, like, I wouldn't be able to do it. Cause it's like, like, how many times can you tell someone you look fine, it's going to be fine? Well, as many times as they need to hear it. Like, when they, you know what I mean? Like, for you and for me, we both do that for each other. And it's like, or if someone's like making comments at us or whatever, like, our friends do that for each other. Cause it's just like, we all know what it's like to kind of be in that like 30-minute headspace where you're just like, fuck my life. Like, you know what I mean? Versus now, like, like you said, like, I know the difference. And as soon as I'm like out of that little rut, like, I'm like, what was I even thinking? Like, I look fine. But like, when you're in it, it's hard. And like you said, like, when you're on your period or whatever, like, you can definitely be more emotional, especially if you're dieting, than you would normally be. And it can be like not a great time, I guess. So yeah, like, I'm definitely lucky to have like the support that I have. And like you said, every single time I go through it, it is easier and easier, but it doesn't mean that like there aren't difficult moments you have to kind of push through.
It's just so easy to be like, it's really easy to be like just irrational in the moment. Like, you get a negative thought, or like something inconvenient happens and your mind just automatically jumps to the worst possible thing, or like, you know, it's just constant, like, you know, for that 30 minutes, you're just like, well, this is it. Like everything's ruined kind of thing. Like it's just super irrational. You just need someone to kind of snap you out of it and be like, okay, like this isn't you. Like you know better than this. And it's just like kind of getting you out of that rut, like you said, right? So
Yeah, and like just talking on like where I've come for progress wise, like and weight wise, I'm like what, like 125, 126-ish right now. And at this point, last prep I think it was like 110, or not last prep, but 2018, my first prep, like the actual first real prep I did. I was like 110 or something. What?
Big flex.
I don't count. I mean, 2019 show. I don't talk about it. I don't think it. It didn't happen. So, but yeah, no, but yeah, like to you, you're like, oh yeah, like you put on like a lot of muscle, like you look great. But to me, I'm like, oh shit, like, you know, like it's a lot. Like what the hell is going on? And like a lot of the time, like growing up as a girl, you have this idea in your head, you're like, oh, being under 120 is like normal. Like I want to be like 120. Like that's like for some of my height, I should be 120 because I Googled it and that's what it said. Like realistically, no, like you can't put a number on like your body, especially if you're building muscle. And it can get like, I guess like weird for females because like I'm talking about like losing weight or dropping weight, and I'm like making these progress photos. And I feel like for guys, like you said, like you're like, oh, this guy looks huge, or he's jacked, or he's shredded, or like, or he like has his weight's higher and he looks lean, and it's like so cool. But like for girls, it's like, wow, she looks skinny, like, you know what I mean? Or it's like sometimes when you're dieting, like you're too skinny, and people like say stuff about that, or they're like, oh, she shouldn't be doing that, like it's not good for her, and like all these things. Like as a female, I feel like it's definitely like I have a very good situation, like my support system's good, and I also just don't engage in the negative behavior, but like it exists. And I'm sure people say stuff about me all the time about like me posting my progress versus like when you post your progress, like you have the boys being like, oh man, like you look sick. And I post a picture of bikini, people are probably like, oh, this girl's full of herself, like, you know what I mean, or like she's naked, like, you know. And it's like I'm posting progress just the same as anyone else's, but like as a female, it's just different. Like there's a lot more to it than people know. And like I think that, I don't want to say guys have it easier, so I wouldn't necessarily say that. I just think that it's definitely more like it started more as like a guy focused sport, and like now it's, I guess, more girls are doing it, and it's like a different feel. I
feel like there's like kind of like we're almost in like a transitional period for a lot, especially with social media, because social media is so much bigger now, and posting your progress on social media is becoming more of a normal thing. But it's almost more accepted for guys to post like a shirtless picture than you would post in your bikini. You know what I mean? And going back to the weight thing, it's like I posted a picture like a couple days ago from my last show to this show, and I put on like 12 to 15 pounds of muscle, and it's like that's huge for me. Like I was pumped about that. But and like you said, like from your first show, you were like, what the hell's going on? Like why am I not that low? Kind of thing, right? Yeah, right. So it's like that's just another, and I feel like that's just something that's kind of built over the years with females. It's just like they're so kind of weight focused and oriented that it's like, you know, it's just ingrained, right? So
yeah, it's like breaking that. Like I'm pretty good with it, but like doesn't mean that it isn't the first thing that hits me, and I'm like, when I weigh myself, you know. But then I'm like, okay, no, like, I know, like I'm good, like, you know, it's fine. And but also, I think what I was gonna try to say there was like, even if I'm not as lean as I was in 2018, regardless of the muscle that I put on or my weight, like at this point, I literally have no control what the scale tells me. I'm doing what I'm told. I'm doing what I can do. I've been dieting for 32 weeks like till this week. Like if my body at this point is like, Taylor, this is all you're getting from me, like that's all I'm getting from it. And like that, I'm okay with that. Like I've accepted. I think in my mood shift in the last week has been like, give it your all the next 3 weeks. But if I give it my all and someone shows up and they're better than me, like I've been dieting for so long and I've made progress and I'm happy with my progress. So at the end of the day, like I'm bringing my very best, like for what I could do for this situation, for where I am right now. And if someone else brings their very best and it's better than mine, or they show up differently, like that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I think like for some reason for a few weeks there, I was like mad. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm not where I need to be. And like I was mad. And I was like, and then I sat back and I was like, why am I mad? Like this is such an amazing thing I'm doing. So rare. Like none of my close girlfriends besides Alicia do it. And she's not even prepping right now, but like I think, yeah, like the last real prep she did was like the 2020 one and it got canceled. So like so many people wouldn't do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I look great. Like I think I look great. Like looking at the bigger
totally.
picture, like, who cares? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a win already. So I think like shifting from that, like, I'm not ready thing to being like, I am where I am. And like, it is what it is. I can go and enjoy myself and enjoy these next 3 weeks and enjoy the show and have fun and be proud of myself for doing this for 32 friggin' weeks. Like that's almost a year. Like,
no,
I can
totally.
be proud of myself, or I can be like salty that maybe I'm not a couple weeks ahead of where I thought I would be when I really just don't know. Like, where did you think you were going to be? Like, how do I know? Like, I haven't dieted down this much in 4 years. So, like, how would I know? What am I comparing this to? You know?
Exactly. And I think that's a really good point to leave off on, because like having that mindset in prep, and it's something that you learn through prep and bodybuilding, is that the kind of accomplishment and the success is actually in the weeks leading up to the show. And like, you know, the actual like feeling that you get from sticking to your plan for 32 weeks and sticking to your macros and doing exactly what you're told every single day. Like that's the feat in its own. Like that's a win right there, like you said, right? So it's not actually like actually bringing your best to the stage, and whatever that best might be, right? You did exactly what you were told for that many weeks, and you know, you're bringing your best package to the stage, and that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, and like that's all I wanted at the end of the day. So it's like, how can we complain about it? And I feel like, yeah, you're right. It's definitely a good place to leave this off at, especially for both of us, like going into the next 3 weeks, because we're probably gonna have days where we're like, oh, we don't feel so great or we're tired. But like knowing that like we're both here, like we're already better than we were, like yeah, like we've all kind of already won at this point. You know what I mean? Like it should be fun now going out and like you have like what 3 or 4 leg days left? Like, you know what I mean? That's how we're gonna go through these next few weeks. And I feel like thinking that or in that mind space is it's a good place to be. I feel like very content with where I am right now. And I think 100%. That like I'm happy that I pushed through that little that moment.
Yeah. And we can just enjoy the process from here on in, and like not stress and worry, right?
Yeah, no, totally agree.
All right, well, that's gonna be it. Taylor, do you want to give your socials? And
yeah, it's just at T Baker Tucker on everything. Everything ever.
There you go. And I'm just Ryan Shea Fitness on pretty much everything as well. So that's it, guys. If you've listened this far, thanks for tuning in. Drop Taylor a follow on all her socials, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.